Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Learning Podcast. This is your host, Andy Bennetts. On today's episode, we welcome Tommi Sue Cox. Tommi Sue is a recently retired lifelong education luminary, having led the incredible school, staff, and students of Laurel Elementary School of Arts and Tech for 21 amazing years. Tommi Sue continues to mentor and advocate for public education and believes in the power of collaboration and diverse learning environments. Welcome to my good friend, Tommi Sue Cox.
Good morning, Tommi Sue. How are you?
I'm doing well, Andy. Great to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm so thankful and honored that you are on this podcast. I know we'd kind of gone through a couple date changes and different things, but I really, really appreciate you being on the podcast. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long, long time. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And thank you for being gracious with the many reschedules that we had.
It's all good. It's all good. I love it. It's interesting because for those that have been listening for a while, and that's kind of what I like about this, right? It's kind of a wide variety. We've got teachers, we've got administrators, we've got, creators, authors, different things like that. So it's kind of a fun mix. I've enjoyed the conversations. One thing, and I don't know if you're okay with me bringing this up, but the idea of, and I let me start this way. I've struggled with this idea of imposter syndrome. Like I am not in, I am in rarefied air. I don't belong in this room. I don't belong talking to these people. And for some weird reason, you had this idea that you did not belong on this podcast. That is so far from the truth. You are an amazing educator and resource, and it's just going to be so much fun to have this conversation. So again, thank you for being on here, and you are more than welcome to come back as much as you'd like to.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that.
You bet. You bet. So before we dive in, and I have some fun questions about what you've been doing in education and leadership over the last few years. Give the listeners just a little bit of a background on, your upbringing and kind of your experience in education and kind of what brought you to this moment.
Okay, sure. Well, I was born and raised on the Navajo Reservation in Shiprock, New Mexico, and I am half Navajo. So I grew up in public education on the reservation. And then my family moved to Cortez, which is just 40 miles north of Shiprock, and went to school there. And and then went through public education in high school. And then in college, I went to a liberal arts Christian college for my undergraduate degree, and then Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona for my graduate degree. And then I started teaching actually in Shiprock, New Mexico, 34 years ago, but I retired after 33 years and taught first and second grade for many years. And of course, all the schools there were Title I schools. And I was actually the Title I teacher for the school and got really involved with all the aspects of the federal funding. And I was the first school in Central Consolidated School District to go to a school-wide program, which is pretty popular now. And the use of the Title I funds can be then for all students in the building, not just those identified. So So then taught in Colorado for a while and then moved up to Fort Collins. And Dan and I were going to move here just for him to get his graduate degree. And it was just a great fit for us. And I think it was kind of a beautiful miracle that I got the job as a principal. Looking back, it's like, wow, God had his hand in that. So it's, I've been at Laurel Elementary School of Arts and Technology for 21 years. And that is unheard of to be for a principal to be that long, especially in a Title I school. So I loved my career and I retired in June. And I'll just have a lot of great memories and hopefully some influence in some areas. And I just really thankful for all the educators who just absolutely pour their hearts into kids and love what they do, like you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting. We talked right before we hopped on that our paths, while we went to the same church, or I went to the same church as you, kind of growing up, which we'll come back to that funny story but later. But professionally, it was kind of like this, ships passing in the night type deal, where I graduated from college and I applied and was interviewing at a couple different places. I interviewed at Mesa Elementary, which was my first job, and you were the dean of students at that time. And between you guys hiring me on as a music teacher, which I thought I'd be a classroom teacher, another story altogether. That was the moment that you and Dan kind of went up to Fort Collins, and I was very sad that we didn't get to work together. But
yes.
yeah, that would have been a blast.
Me too. Yeah, I remember when we come home to visit and get to visit with you and your dad, and it was a stressful time for me being a new principal, but I just really appreciated being able to visit with you all and just get some real encouragement to keep going.
Good. Well, you left me, quote unquote, in very good hands. Brad Wilt was principal at the time, and he's a lifelong friend and an amazing mentor. I was never the dean of students, so I actually got up to the point where I was in the same position that you were at when you went up to Fort Collins. But Brad was still to this day one of the most influential educators and just mentors in my life. So he was an amazing a person to leave me with, to kind of guide me along the way. So good guy.
Yes,
hey,
absolutely. Same here. Oh,
great.
he's probably listening. Brad, I love you. You're amazing.
Yes. Yeah, we all love Brad. There's just a small number of educators that just leave a kind of indelible mark on people's lives, and definitely he was one of them. And I have no doubt that in your 21 years at Laurel and all of the other ones that you have made a huge impact on kiddos and teachers and administrators and that kind of stuff. So hopefully they're watching this and they can reach out and be like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Cox, you did all this for me. I'm sure that will be the case.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
You bet. You talked a little bit about working in a Title I school. Excuse me. Both, I guess you went to Title I schools in Shiprock. Probably Cortez was one of those as well. Again, growing up and going to school, and then teaching back in Shiprock, and then up in Fort Collins. I guess what are some of the unique challenges that you found as a leader in those schools that you tried to make a positive impact on?
Well, to qualify for Title I funds, the school has to have at least 40% of the population that lives in poverty. Okay. And traditionally that was determined by the number of students that qualified for free and reduced lunch, which means they live below the poverty line. Okay. And the challenges that I faced in Cortez and Shiprock were more about ensuring that teachers were highly qualified and had the professional development they needed to be able to really impact learning. And it was hard there because it's more of a remote area. Right. And so that's something where at Mesa, it was just important that we were part of that critical friends group that was so long ago. Right. And but then in Fort Collins, Colorado State University is nearby, University of Northern Colorado. So there are lots of opportunities for some enrichment and professional development. And it's it's a very large school district. So their professional development is tops. It's amazing. The challenges I faced here were educating the community and community members and philanthropists about Title I schools. And it's overall, our school district, I think, is at 12% free and reduced lunch, but our Title I schools range from 90% to about 60%. Wow. And Laurel was in that 2/3, 60% free and reduced lunch. And I think there were a lot of community members that I came in contact with that were really shocked at to know that there were kids in Fort Collins that didn't have some basic needs that were met. And we strive to meet those at school so that they could focus on learning. And so that pretty much sums that up, I think. Yeah,
that's great. I would not have thought about the variance. I guess it makes sense being in a larger town, like you said, just access to more resources there, close to a couple colleges. Take me through what a conversation would look like. You mentioned philanthropists. That's not something we run into Cortez very often. Right. Wanting to give money to schools. What does a conversation like that? How did that go to kind of open their eyes to, there are kids that are worried about where their next meal is coming from, or different circumstances with family. I guess, how did you get them to kind of understand that and then open up their wallets for the right reasons to kind of make a difference in education.
When I first started in Fort Collins, there was a group called the Faith Community Volunteer Board, and they were pastors at a variety of churches around Fort Collins that really just wanted to impact students and schools and support teachers in ways that and so we really drew a really clear line about no proselytizing and
sure.
that it would be very separation of church and state and all that. So I think what we started with was those folks coming into the schools to read to kids and just see and just be involved in it, because they themselves went to schools that were not high poverty, and their children probably went to schools that were not high poverty, and so that was important for them to learn and see what was needed.
Right.
And one real small way that the congregations were able to help was snacks. So that's something that, we have snack time and throughout schools at all grades. And in their child's schools, families were able to just provide that. But at our school, there were there were a few that could. And so I remember one community member said, well, I know about this junior league group, and I think that they would be really happy to be able to do that. And so they provided snacks for the school, and then they expanded that to all the other Title I schools. And so I think it's just for them to come in the doors to see and just know that there are children. They can't, we can't say much about their backgrounds or anything, but over time, when they're sharing and they're able to learn a lot about them, and then really it was beautiful. So that was one of the first ones. And then another was Project Smile. So we had a teacher at another school, a Title I school, who there were dental needs that were not being met. And when kids' teeth are hurting, there's hard to learn. And so she contacted a friend that she knew, and they were able to start this organization called Project Smile. And they brought dentists in once a year to do a quick check, and then they raised funds throughout the year to be able to provide dental care free of charge, which was wonderful. And then they provided toothbrushes and toothpaste to go home with kids, and they provided that 3 times a year. And that organization, over time, just the last 2 or 3 years, there's another organization that was able to take that over. So it's been dissolved, but and then also we partnered with the Lions Club, and they had this device to check vision, and but it didn't do the Snellen chart with the E's and all that. It was a device that you could check for farsightedness, so that students, when they're reading, they can't see close up. And that's something that the Snellen chart doesn't screen for. So that was really, I'd say probably 2 or 3 children in every class were identified with needing glasses. Yeah. And then the Lions Club provided for them to be able to really buffer that cost. So they provided 2 glasses, one for home and one for school, because you probably experienced that some kids forget to bring their glasses often.
Doesn't sound like elementary kids at all, right?
Right. So I think through Project Smile at our fundraisers, sometimes I'd be seated at tables with very well-meaning families that had some misperceptions about families in poverty. And one particular conversation, I remember I was just really offended, but I had to just breathe and and just try to help them learn, I guess. But what a gentleman said was, well, those families just don't care about their kids. And I said, well, I think what I see is families who care deeply and love their children above all else,
Right.
And they have a lot of factors in their lives that average families may not, and
Mm.
that take precedence over things. And they're doing their very best that they can in every
Mm-hmm.
situation. And that's truly what I see
Right.
in my world. And he's like, oh,
Oh, okay.
but
Right. Kind of shut him
okay.
up, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, it's a very, very giving and thoughtful and compassionate community we have, but there's a lot of education that needs to take place.
Sure.
And yeah.
Right. I love that. Another, it's actually a church lesson, but I think it applies to anybody. It kind of along those same lines of just how much better off would we be as a society if we gave people the benefit of the doubt? I think we are so quick to judge, oh, they're in poverty because of this, or they're in poverty because, they're all druggies, or whatever the case is, right? Insert whatever, trope that might be.
Right.
If we would just open our eyes to the fact that, like you said, everybody is doing their level best to provide for their family, to do what they can. I think about it, just generationally. You think of, like, if your grandfather was a terrible person and beat the wife and was not a good father, that is what your dad saw, and he didn't want to be that, so he was 100% better, which is amazing from that to this, but that's still not, maybe up here. And it
Mhm.
takes time to go through those progressions and to get another notch better every single time. And I think that we too often are very quick to judge and have judgments on one specific thing when you don't see the lifetime of experiences and misfortunes and different things that they had no control over.
Right. Absolutely. That's well said.
Well, thanks.
Good stuff.
You would mention, I'm looking at your bio on the side here. The value for students learning alongside with peers with diverse backgrounds. That's obviously public education is that, right? Like you said,
Right.
we've got some that have plenty of money, some that are struggling with that, various races, genders, the whole shebang, right? There's all kinds of different ways that might be a diverse background. How did you see that? I'm interested to hear kind of your take on that, having Native American heritage as well, also marrying a white guy, right? So I mean, so you kind of lived both worlds of this. So how did that help you and enable you to kind of maybe connect with some of those kiddos that maybe don't feel represented or understood?
Well, I think I didn't really understand the impact until a teacher told me once. She said that one of her students, Alma, who is Spanish speaking, monolingual, when she first came to school, and she said something to her teacher, when she was able to share things that Mrs. Cox kind of looks like me. She has brown eyes and brown hair, and
Right.
I didn't even, but that's growing up in Southwest Colorado and
Right.
northern New Mexico. That's pretty much everybody.
Right.
I mean, there's not, there's not as much of a disparity between the people of color. In Fort Collins and is very white, upper middle class, and so I think when I started to understand better the need for that, but it was just like what I've always done. And so we just made some efforts probably in the last 10 years to ensure that our library books were representative of all the diversity that we enjoy. And that was, we got a grant from a local credit union that we had. And so then we were able to purchase that all, took a little picture and sent it to them. And, there's just, again, that means to be able to bolster what is generally provided to all the schools. We kind of went above and beyond to be able to have that in our classrooms.
You had mentioned that we had kind of crossed paths. It's obviously like it wasn't like we didn't see each other after you went up to Fort Collins, but we were just, living nine hours apart. And we had crossed paths maybe once or twice before in our varying degrees, you being a principal me doing some different things in ed tech. I have to ask, as a techie guy, the name of your school is Laurel Elementary School of Arts and Technology. So tell me how, as a former music teacher, as a tech lover, I wish I could have gone to your school, right? You have arts, you have technology. Tell me about kind of what made Laurel a little bit different than some of the other schools because of that arts and technology focus.
And now, a brief commercial from today's sponsor.
Hey guys, Andy Bennetts, owner and president of Interactive Learning. Our awesome little company has been around for close to 20 years now, and our core purpose and mission is to empower the future of education with innovative solutions through engaging technologies and leadership programs. We are blessed to work with a wide range of markets, including K-12, trades, corporate, and government. Interactive Learning is also proud to serve our nation's JROTC programs with over 3,000 units and 500,000 cadets. For our podcast listeners today, we have a special offer just for you. It's called our Class Tech Discovery Session. This is incredibly helpful for teachers, administrators, tech personnel, really anybody involved in helping students learn with technology. Here's what you get with the Class Tech Discovery Session. It starts with a short Zoom call. We'll talk about your class needs, your wants, desires, really your class wish list of ed tech. Then we'll touch on your timelines and budgets, plus any constraints that your district might be facing. Next, we'll look at new tech and new solutions, the latest and greatest out there that might be applicable to you and your district. And if you're interested, we'll even demonstrate these crazy cool cutting edge technologies just for you. Finally, we'll give you an idea of costs and professional development and how we and our team will support you moving forward. Again, that is Interactive Learning's Class Tech Discovery Session. Request your session now by texting Discovery to 970-739-2229 or emailing Discovery to andy@intlrn.com. Request your school's highly informative Class Tech Discovery Session today.
And now, back to the Empowered Learning Podcast.
Sure. I really love to share this story because it's very it's pretty cool. So the technology piece, we had a teacher, a sixth grade teacher, Paul Paduska, and he went to a tech conference. You know, we had professional development funds for teachers to go. And so he went to a tech conference and he won a smart board. And this is like 15 years ago, a long time ago. And so he won a smart board, and he was like, he used it for, you know, half a year, and then said, let's build on this. And so then we had tech funds in our building that were given from the district. They had a mill levy passed that was specifically for technology. So then we leveraged that funding to be able to purchase smart boards over time for all the classrooms, and then provided the professional development for teachers to be able to have the capacity to use that. And again, we had some key teacher leaders who were able to lead the way and try things in their classroom, and then be able to share that information, and also serve as mentors, I guess would be a good word. So that's the technology piece. And then it was just really always a focus after that we were continually building the skills of teachers and finding ways to integrate technology. And then the arts piece, Laurel has a history of having a very strong arts focus. In fact, our school is, when it was, the new building was built, they had requested a theater to be a pull-out stage in the gym. And so it's really was a strong part. So that was kind of a natural piece. Our music teacher at the time, she also was a Suzuki violin teacher. When I first started at Laurel, the enrollment had started to decline. And so we had to make some really difficult decisions on where to make some budget cuts. And unfortunately, there are some teachers that had to go, their contracts were reduced, and we started with the specials teachers from 100% to 80%, which would be 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week. And on that 5th day, some teachers were happy to just stay home and but my music teacher at the time, she wrote a grant to the Ceramus Foundation here in Fort Collins, and to teach Suzuki lessons on that day off. So she started with 8 students, and then had some violins donated, and then also we purchased some with I don't remember what funding source we had, but we had those little 8 kindergartners start, and then each year built on that, it became a priority for us to be able to provide that. And the Ceramus Foundation just really loved what we're doing. They have been with us the whole time and have provided that funding for a teacher just 1 day a week, which is not a lot of money, but enough. Gotcha. So we expanded that over time and have gone through several different teachers and had to move it to a classified position, and we moved it to be more of a full-time position that came with benefits. But it was a position for the same pay kind of as a tutor or a teacher's aide. And now we have over 160 students, kindergarten through 5th grade, who are learning violin. And we had an amazing, talented teacher at one point, Chad Fisher, who melded traditional folk music, fiddle music, and also learned of the Suzuki method and taught traditional Suzuki classical music. And that took our program to a whole new level, and we were able to partner with some local blues bands, and can't remember the name of the company, but they donated a bunch of mandolins and a banjo. And so we shifted to where students starting in 3rd grade could shift from violin to mandolin. And then, so now we have a couple banjos and guitars and violins and mandolins and a couple of basses. And so it's a wonderful program. And so again, that's something that we haven't had to put a lot of building fund into. It's mostly been funded through grant sources. I once was invited to share about our arts piece. We also partner with Colorado State University's dance program. And they come over and they teach movement lessons, and then the teachers learn from that on how to integrate dance and movement into, I don't know, the weather unit, or just ways to integrate it into the curriculum. So we, at one point, they invited me to this summer program to be on a panel of teachers or administrators and teachers on how to really advance the arts in public education. And they asked, I don't remember much about it, but this is one thing I do remember, is they asked, how can this happen? And all I could think was, well, I just said yes. I said yes. And that's all it takes, is for someone to have an idea and the administrator approving it and saying, yes, let's figure this out, and it'll happen. So all the other, there are lots of things that we didn't know. And so that didn't keep us from moving forward. And if someone has a passion about something, just say yes. Let it go.
I love that. I was on a call earlier today with some awesome people, and and I'm sure this is not his. This is where I heard it from. It's take massive, imperfect action, and as a perfectionist, that is a stretch. It's hard to take imperfect action, but if you don't take action, you're never going to get off of start. So kudos to you for seeing the value of that. And even if you don't have everything, figured out, you gotta take that first step and get the ball rolling. So I'm sure it has made a difference in lots of kids' lives. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's like I said, I believe it or not, Chris and I did talk about, after I got out of the schools, we were looking at, what would it look like for us to travel from, or to move rather, not travel, move from Cortez up to Fort Collins was one of the options, just because she went to school there, or Castle Rock or something like that, just because of the opportunities that kiddos have in larger cities. I love Cortez, and I think our boys are happy here and developing, but there's just something for being in places that you're just connected to so many different resources. So
right,
so
true. Yeah, I want to share a story though about the arts piece that there's a family that started with us in kindergarten, and it was by lottery because we only had like 30 spaces that we could, and we'd have probably 80 to 100 kindergartners each year at some point. So this little guy got into the program, and his parents had no music background whatsoever. And they were like, this is great. And so they just really embraced that for him and encouraged him to practice, and eventually got him private lessons. But by the time he was in third grade, he was writing music. And he was one of the first in our district to be qualified for creatively gifted. And then he is just an amazing violinist, and he's won several competitions, and he performed 2 summers ago at the Carnegie Hall.
Goodness.
He's getting his degree in music and violin. It's just amazing. His parents, it's like, we would never have known. We would never have encouraged him to go into music. And in our district, you can't really start an instrument until middle school.
Right.
So he wouldn't it was just, and he has 2 other siblings, and they're also just as talented. And one plays the cello, another the violin. But it's one of those pieces where you just, without the opportunity, you never know. And so just being able to provide that was magical, honestly.
Yes, that is a perfect word for it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. That's we talk often with other folks that are on the show that, especially in education, you don't often see the fruits of your labor. So to see those wins, I guess, especially even for elementary, right? Because they've got to go through middle school and high school before they know what they're going to do with their life. And to see those kiddos prosper and just thrive, from a lot of that is kind of based in what their framework was, or their start, right? So kudos to you guys for giving them those opportunities. That's super fun. Book Trust, again, kind of looking off to the side here. You're involved with lots of nonprofits and things that value and promote education. Talk to us a little bit about Book Trust.
Yeah, Book Trust started in Fort Collins by a young girl, and she noticed that the students in her classroom weren't able to buy books like she was. So she started this little fund for kids, and it just grew from there. And now it's nationwide. Can't remember exactly how many schools, but my part was in Laurel. I was approached by Book Trust my second year there, and to be part of this program. And they provided at that time, I think, $5 a student, and it was students who qualified for free and reduced lunch. And so it was kind of an opt-in program, and every parent that had the opportunity accepted that. So every month, those little newspaper scholastic book orders, the students got to choose books on their own, and then over time, Book Trust adjusted that at Laurel to be able to have all students in our classrooms do that. Then there was no stigma, and even there are families who don't qualify for free and reduced lunch that really, that would be an expense that they might not be able to fit into their budgets. So it really was impactful to have all students be able to have that funding. At one point, it was only kindergarten through third grade. And then we added a preschool at Laurel. So they brought on preschool. And then I think as funding increased, the book trust expanded it to kindergarten through fifth grade.
Okay.
And then during the pandemic, they had to go back to K3. And but this is, again, nationwide. I'm not sure how many schools, what grades they do, but at Laurel, we were able to then come back to pre-K through fifth grade, having that funding, and they raised to about $11 a student now.
Wow.
So it's an amazing organization. They really value that student choice is key, that students, because it was cute to hear stories from kids where they had like a drawer in their dresser that was reserved just for their books that they brought home.
Right.
Laurel serves our local homeless shelter, and kids can carry their little paperback books in their backpack, and they keep them there. They do treasure them, and it's something they own, and they keep and protect.
I love it. I love it. That's very cool. That's definitely a worthwhile cause. I think we've got information on that. I'll put that in the show notes. If you're interested in finding out more about Book Trust, I will make sure that all the listeners can access that and fund that or look into more of that. So thanks for sharing for that. So I have to tell kind of a funny story. We need to do kind of our grab bag and our wrap up here, but I did get clearance from Tommi Sue that we were okay to have this conversation. So when I was probably in fifth grade there-ish, Tommi Sue was my Sunday school teacher. And we were reading some Old Testament thing, probably Deuteronomy, something like that. And they were going through different rites and whatever. And it said something about performed a circumcision. And we just kind of continued to read on. And me being the inquisitive fellow that I was, I'm like, Tommi Sue, what is circumcision? And I mean, this was forever ago, right? And I vividly remember kind of her face just flushing and being like, oh my gosh. And I'll let you say exactly what you said, because that's exactly how I remember it too. So what was your response to my question of what is circumcision?
Yeah, so I remember like taking a deep breath. Well, I'm just going to put on my scientific hat here, and I described it, medically, I guess, what the procedure was, and and everything, and it was a little shocking to everyone in the room.
Oh my gosh, classic.
Using the correct terms and everything.
Yes. First time I'd heard that word in a church service or kids building, but oh my goodness, so much fun, much fun. Oh goodness. Well, this has been a blast. I have a couple wrap-up questions here, and you're welcome back anytime, Tommi Sue. This was so much fun. I so appreciate you spending some time with me and just sharing your passion for education and for kiddos. And even though you're retired right now, I know that your heart is still there, and you're going to continue to just foster that and build that up. So thank you again for this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So my randomized grab bag question here, we're going to do question number 15. So looking back, you've recently retired. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I think that I loved and accepted all students. All. Yeah, because all encompasses, especially at Laurel, students with disabilities and severe disabilities, as we had a severe disability program, and of color and of gender, of whatever is facing, but whatever unique quality that students have, all. Yeah.
I love that. And I have no doubt that people will think of that when they think of you, because I know your heart. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. So our final 3 questions are key questions for all of our Empowered Learning podcast guests. Question number 1. Tommi Sue, who is the leader that you most admire and try to emulate?
I honestly would have to say Brad Waite.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's he mentored me kindly and carefully, and just super encouraging, and also helped me ensure that I was able to balance family life. And we only had 5 years together, but he just and his dad would come by and visit. We'd see Buford, and I think I remember a picture that was taken with Brad on one side and Buford on the other, and they quipped, "Yes, there was a rose between two thorns," or something like that. It's really
Sounds
cute.
like that.
Yeah,
Mm.
but honestly, Brad is just such an amazing leader and so caring and thoughtful, but also really able to balance what has to be done and making big decisions and all the aspects that becomes part of being a leader, a school leader. Love you, Brad.
Yes, I love you too, Brad. Appreciate it. It's so much fun to kind of just chat with folks about this and see just some similarities. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, Brad is on the top of my list as well. So it's kind of cool to see that he touched so many people's lives and encouraged us and gave us a goal to shoot for. It was a very, very high goal. Another kind of fun connection here is I've connected both with both Brad's sons. Ryan and Devin and I are working on various things. So
that's
it's kind of fun. I need to have Brad on here as well, but Ryan and Devin would be an awesome guest as well. That's just an amazing family for sure.
It is. Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Question number 2. We are at the beginning of 2024 when we're shooting this. So Tommi Sue, this last year, 2023 was probably kind of a whirlwind of a year. So what would you say was your most impactful learning over the last year?
The first thing that came to mind was anyone who's considering retirement, do the transition year. We have the opportunity to retire, but work at the next year. Everyone knows you're retiring, or you are retired technically, but it gave me the opportunity to have a gradual release of all the responsibilities. And I hope I don't get too emotional here, but what I received from that was people went out of their way to share their gratitude. And it was just beautiful to see families and parents and staff members over time, and just to be able to share with me, that impact. And so that was a gift to me all year. And I absolutely love my job. And it's a loss in my life. And I hope that every educator feels that way. It's just, there's so much that we do to impact our kids, and so many teachers that are just gifted, and we want them to be able to stay in the profession and continue that great work that they're doing. So sorry, I got emotional anyway.
I appreciate that. You can tell how much that means to you, and I'm sure your teachers would echo that. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. All right, last one. This is a fun question to end on, just because everybody has different lenses that they're looking through. You can look at it through a mom lens. You can look at it through an educator leader or an educator teacher, just you personally. So what would you think? How would you empower learning for future generations?
I honestly believe that we can't lose focus on the importance of the arts, visual arts, music. That's an aspect that keeps kids connected, and they can access a part of themselves that they wouldn't typically in an educational setting. So we can't lose focus of the importance of that. And starting at younger ages, it shouldn't have to be a junior high step to then be able to try an instrument. Thankfully at most schools, they have some kind of choir for kids in elementary school, and that's their first instrument, their voice. But then, I think that's my answer to that.
I love it. Well, as a former music teacher, I heartedly support that idea, because it's super sad to see, like you said, when it comes to budget cuts, unfortunately, arts sometimes is the very, very first thing that is cut. And I would agree with you that should be one of the last ones to be cut, just because of the impact that it has on their development as a whole person. There's the cross connection with math, brain development. There's all kinds of reasons as to why music and arts are a huge benefit to kids.
Yes.
So, well, Tommi Sue, thank you so much again for spending a few minutes with me. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I miss you. We need to connect sometime.
Yeah, maybe when I'm Cortez next week, you and I and Brad could go out for coffee.
That would be great. I would love that. I would love that.
All
So,
right.
awesome. Thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye.